you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning and welcome to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and let me start off by saying thank you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for listening to the program over the years. Thank you, and thank you. Nothing is taken for granted. We would like for you to join the conversation, and if you would like to be a participant, all you have to do is dial 516-453-9921 and press the number 1 button. That way you will get in line, and when it's your turn, go for it. We would ask that your comments be brief so that we can get as many calls in as possible that Mr. Fuller can answer. So please be brief on that. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And more than likely, most of the Gmails will not be read at today's session or class, whatever you want to call it, classroom. But at some point before the machine deletes it, I'll try to make sure we get to it. But questions come first. So I'm going to ask, because some of you, and you know who you are, you've been abusing this, and it bothers me that you have. But listen, when you write me, please be brief for radio edit, please. Because if you write me a novel, I can't read that thing. Please, ma'am, please, sir. Now, I'm asking this time because I really don't want to get into to where I just ignore it. So please, be kind to that, and courteous also. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to click on where it says, I think it says programs or shows, and you want to get the Produce Justice show. Produce Justice. You click on that, and then there's a little area there that you can get the chat room, and you can get into the chat room as Be Good One and Emery Lumumba. Hey, man, you on there early today. Thank you. All right, Be Good. I know who you are down in Houston. Yeah. Okay. You can do that. You can get on there, and usually there's all great conversations that take place in there, so you can do that. Mr. Fuller and I were told this morning that Mr. Fuller's show, Mr. Fuller was on the Carl Nelson show last Thursday. It was a good show, and you can get that on our website at producejustice.com via the Facebook official Neely Fuller Facebook page on facebook.com. The show is up. We were told that this morning, and it was great. Of course, I listen to the show anyway. I always like to take the opportunity, any chance I get, to get more knowledge, because you can never learn enough. You can never learn enough. So with that ado, and by the way, when you call in, as Danelle or Darnell and Marcus and Corey and John down there, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to get to you, but I want you to keep in mind this question that I'm going to read from one of our people. This probably would be good chat room information too, but it's addressed to Mr. Fuller. And first of all, let me say good morning, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. How are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay. All righty. Let's do this. Okay. This comes from Daryl. He says, Mr. Fuller, two-part question for you. The first part is this. How would you feel if someone was selling your book for $20 a pop consistently over the past 30 years and never paid you a red cent for it? And when you asked them just about paying you, they told you, quote, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I worked hard for everything I have, so stop asking for a handout, end of quote. Would you then instead ask for a month's worth of groceries, an academic scholarship, a government job for a family member of yours, ask for a new house, or would you continue to insist that you be duly and fairly compensated monetarily, considering that's how the authors profit off from the books they've written? I ask you that, this is part two, because I hear you saying that black people don't need cash reparations, and most of us here in the listening audience disagree. We disagree because when other groups get reparations, they're not being paid for the atrocities they went through with scholarships, with home loans, or government jobs. They're given direct cash payments. However, you continue to worry about how the worst among us would do if they had money. Mr. Fuller, reparations ain't just about giving us a check, but it starts with cutting of the check, and it goes from there into a slew of other areas for us to be compensated in. Give us who are on the code. Give us who are on code and about being constructive the money, and we will buy our own damn land and produce justice so we can become more of that universal man and woman you encourage us to be. I spoke my piece now, and I'll wait in anticipation of your response, Mr. Fuller. Peace.
My response is instant and concise, I hope. It's this. For those who want to ask for monetary compensation, which is what I have said right from the beginning, go ahead and ask for monetary compensation. I'm not in charge of anything. Nobody has to stand in line and see what my opinion is before they go and ask for what they want. The compensatory code is all about what you want. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? How do you plan to do it? And what do you expect the constructive result to be? Some people want cash money. I have said, and I mean it because I'm applying it to just me, I was just putting out the whole thing out there for whomever wanted to go about doing it the way that I would choose to go about doing it, and will, if it ever comes up where actually somebody's going to approach me with compensation and or reparations. I would just simply say that the presentation I have made for me, Neely Fuller, is, you're talking about repairing a lot of damage is done over generations. Some people say 6,000 years worth. That's what I'm talking about. If that's where white supremacy began, I'm talking about 6,000 years worth of repairs that's got to be done. If we have been damaged for 6,000 years, that's a long time. Now, some people say, oh, no, I'm just talking about what's been happening in my lifetime. Well, the United Independent Compensatory Code, that's what's so, I say, is so wonderful about the concept. It opens the door for everybody They don't have to go filter themselves through what Neely Fuller says. They can just brush right past Neely Fuller and go right to the table, the negotiating table, with the white supremacists and say, well, I don't care what Neely Fuller wants for himself. He's talking for himself. He told me on the way out, after he got what he wanted, what he suggested that I might think about wanting. But I ain't thinking about what he said. I came here with a package of my own. That's what I'm coming to the table with. So whatever you go to the table with of the white supremacists, you don't have to go through Neely Fuller to talk to the white supremacists. All you got to do is just step right up to the table when the white supremacists say your turn has come for you to ask for what you want. And the white supremacists might even mention Neely Fuller. Well, that's what not Neely Fuller recommended. And you say, I'm not here on account of Neely Fuller. He's not my representative. I'm representing me. This is the United Independent Code. I'm united with what I want. Not what somebody else, not even what you want, sir, out of all due regard. I came here to talk about what I want. Now, here's the deal. And then you sit down with your yellow pad or whatever it is you've outlined there, or booklet. I'm talking to all the audience now out here. I'm going to settle this once and for all. So that, Neely Fuller said, I got to get this straight with Neely Fuller. So, no, nothing you got to get straight with me. You got to deal with the white supremacists. That's what my whole book is about. I don't need anybody to go and represent me. I represent Neely Fuller. That's all I represent. I can't represent nobody else as a fellow prisoner of the system of white supremacy. I want to settle this right here this morning forever.
Okay.
No, you step up to the table for what you want. And the white supremacists, I'm just giving hypotheticals now. The white supremacists say, sir, your list is longer than anybody who has ever come up with anything. And that includes Neely Fuller and all the Congress people and all the different people who have been talking about reparations for years. And your list and your demands and your requests, now, we got to have some kind of order here. This is what the white supremacists might say. But whatever it is that you want, according to the code itself, you say, hey, sir, I'm talking about my list. I'm not talking about everybody else. I didn't come here to, as some type of congressperson. I came here as me. Everybody step up to the table and ask what you want. I want 10, 15 Black Wall Streets. I want, everything for my cousin Jack. And he's drunk and an alcoholic and a dope dealer and a dope seller and a dope user. And this is what I want for him because I'm representing him because he asked me to represent him. And that's what I'm here for. And I don't want to talk about nobody else or what they're doing and all like that. That's the way reparations, if it's going to be what you call, quote, unquote, democratic, because certainly, according to the code, that's the way it works. Okay. Neely Fuller just makes suggestions. Like everything in the textbook is a suggestion. Neely Fuller can't make no demands. Okay. Everybody get clear on that. Anything that I say, it's just somebody passing on the corner, which is what I am, of the corner of the prison that I'm in with all the other prisoners, and you just ask me about what time is the basketball game today in the prison yard, and I just tell you, and you say, well, hey, I got something else to do at that time. Well, that's between you and somebody else. I don't have nothing to do with that. You ask me about the basketball game. What time is it? Okay. On this question, if I understood it, apparently, or maybe they were being hypothetical, but someone
the possibility of someone selling your book cheaper than what you are selling it for and keeping all of the profits. Do you have a problem with that and not compensating you?
That is a violation of federal law, and they will wind up in the penitentiary. And if they're doing it knowingly and whatnot, this is Neely Fuller going on record right now. If I find out that this is what you're doing, that's where you're going. If it's proven in a court of law that you're violating copyright law, I'm on board with that federal violation, that prison camp violation. That's supposed to be, I'm supposed to be you getting my part of whatever I'm doing, even in a prison camp. Now, for somebody to come and use my car, just get in my car and drive off. That's what the white supremacists do. And running a taxi service with my car and hiding it from me. Didn't come by me and say, now, can I sell your book and we'll make an arrangement for a cut. That's how it's done. Black people always want to do this thing about, hey, brother, you're my brother, and all us brothers got to stick together. No, you're stealing. The code says don't steal, don't rob, not even from people who have stolen and robbed from you. And somebody, I took, I had to pay people. Nobody gives me a book. I had to pay people. And anybody under the law of compensation that Fuller is connected with, including people who have volunteered to do things.
Yes. I
have offered to give them some type of compensation that I can afford to give them.
Yes.
And as I do well incrementally, according to the law of compensation, I hope to help them to do well, better than they're doing now.
Yes, sir.
And this is what the law of compensation is all about, the entire law of compensation, the compensatory code. And then I know what the game is. I mean, it's just a license to steal. That's all that is. That's all somebody said, hey, Fuller, you're a brother, so you should let me steal from you. I just go and sit somewhere in the bushes and wait for you to come by after your work. And since I know you got a hole in your pocket, everything that you have worked for that day falls out on the parking lot, and I just watch you and come and scoop it up. And you never know what's going on, except you can't pay your bills. You can't pay the people who have done things for you. And now you're coming up empty-handed and can't give them the compensation for what they have done for you. That's what somebody like you just describing is asking me. But I'm saying, no. You should go to jail for stealing. That's what you're doing. Period.
All right. There you heard it. Okay, coming up, we have a response from Cleo, a question you answered last week. But before we go to Cleo, let's go to, and I know it says Darnell, but I think it's Darnell, but I might be wrong. Correct me. Anyway, it's New York. Coming up. All right, I'm going to say Darnell. Wait a minute and see if I'm correct. Is it Daniel or Darnell?
It's Darnell, Mr. Bobby.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
I just got a brief VGQ and a brief question. My VGQ is, I noticed that you say the system of white supremacy, and I know the word the means that there's only supposed to be one. So what do you mean when you say the system of white supremacy, Mr. Fuller? And Mr. Bobby,
what do I mean when I say the system of white supremacy?
Yes.
I mean the system of white supremacy is racism, and racism is white supremacy, is white supremacy and racism, which is the same thing, means the practice of gaining fun, glory, and material comfort from mistreating people who have color in their skin and being successful and are supreme at doing so. Anything is misunderstood.
Okay. Darnell, what you said you had a question, or was that the question?
That was.
I was asking the caller, is there anything that's misunderstood about what I just said?
Okay. Okay.
No, there's nothing misunderstood.
Okay, so you say you want to stay online, or what?
Yes.
Is that what you said? Okay. We can. I'll do the best I can. Okay, Marcus, man, you up early out there in Long Beach on the left coast. How you doing this morning, brother?
Good morning. I'm still learning, as Mr. Fuller would say.
Yes, sir.
I have a quick VGQ and a question. The VGQ is as follows. Like Mr. Fuller said on the program, I'd say a week or 2 weeks ago, reparations of the mind is the best form of reparations. My question is this morning, which has been on my mind as of late, Mr. Fuller, can you explain how black people who choose to gangbang is a direct result of the system of white supremacy?
Can I explain how black people who have what?
Black people who choose to gangbang.
Gangbang. Black people who choose to gangbang. Gangbanging meaning doing harm to people, I guess.
Yes.
Unjustly.
Correct.
Is that the correct thing to do according to the code? Is that the question?
The question is, how is that gangbanging a direct result of the system of white supremacy?
Yes. The white supremacists taught black people all about gangsterism. That's one of the first things I learned in school. I learned about a person called Christopher Columbus and whatever we loosely call gangbanging. When he encountered people he had never seen before, I understand he took his gang, which is what they became. They were navigators and sailors before they encountered people who they thought were strangers to them. And I understand that according to the history books that the white supremacists have written, many of them said that Mr. Columbus took a look around and started killing the people. If they gave him any problems of any kind about him being on their land and mingling with them and being dictatorial, telling them what he wanted them to do for him, things that they weren't willing to do. So he decided not to negotiate by talking, but to negotiate by force, according to what I read. So that constitutes what gangs do. Somebody walks into your house or walks into your space or approaches you and say, I want you to do what I want you to do. And you say, well, I don't choose to do that, and I have some plans of my own. And they say, well, I don't care about what plans you have made on your own for yourself. I'm talking about the plans that I have made for you. And then I understand that's how it all gets started. Somebody making somebody do something that they don't want to do, which is robbery, theft, or murder, if it includes that. You're not going to do what I want you to do? Well, what about if I kill you? How about that? That's basically the gang fundamental. I want you to do something for me. And you don't want to do that for me because you don't think that you're going to get what you need to get out of it, so you don't want to be a part of it. So I say, oh, you're going to be a part of it. And if you don't want to be a part of it, you're still going to be a part of it. And if you don't want to go along with you still being a part of it, based on my demands, I'm going to kill you. So that gangsterism of all types comes from the white supremacists under the system of white supremacy. They are the master gangsters. And black people do an excellent job of imitating the master gangsters. We have seen some very, 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 very recent examples of that. At least one just a few days ago, which I will not name any names because that is not the important thing. The important thing is to think about how do you counteract that type of behavior to get what? The most constructive results.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. Tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take a break. Thank you there, Marcus from Long Beach. For everybody else, including Marcus from Long Beach, you are listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with today's program, all you have to do is dial 516-453-9921. Now, you could just listen if you want to the show, or if you have a question, just press that number 1 button, and then I will be alerted that you have something to say. Or you would like to have Mr. Fuller answer your question, which you can do. If you do, please be brief in your VGQ, please. And I thank those of you who honor that and don't go around John's barn, whoever the hell that is, asking questions or whatever, trying to prove a point. Just ask the question so that Mr. Fuller can answer the question. Thank you for doing that. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And you can also join the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to hit the programs where you can get the Produced Justice show. Hit that bad boy, and then you are welcome to get into the chat room. And, man, they are in it. Oh, yeah. And for a review, Constructive Actions. Constructive Actions Items is doing his thing. Gives you a review of last week's program, and there's some lively conversations going on there now. Be good one. He working that bad boy. But you can join the conversation, and occasionally I will read one occasionally, and then we can go from there. All righty. Thank you, Marcus from the left coast, and you don't have to be a stranger. Okay, let's see here, Mr. Fuller. I said I was going to get you a response here from, let's see. Oops, hit the wrong button here. Let me see. Make sure I get the button right. There we go. This is from a question that you answered last week from Cleo. So Cleo says, Mr. Fuller, thank you so much, sir. I listened to the answer on 3/22/22 broadcast. It was powerful indeed. You answered it more from a present-day standpoint. I was wondering if you could revisit this question and provide answers based on your entire lifespan. I'm trying to learn about the dietary, fitness, and sleep habits of you, Mr. Fuller Jr., which has inevitably played a role in your longevity. I understand that you are currently 92 years old. Your mind is still very sharp. You're keen and alert. I'm wondering how your personal lifestyle choices have played a role in your current overall health state as a 92-year-old black male. I am thoroughly inspired by your life's work, Mr. Fuller Jr., and would like to learn and apply what you have worked, which has worked for you. Again, thank you for asking the question that I asked and considering a revisit on a future show with the view towards an answer per your lifespan as opposed to just your current day dietary, fitness, and sleep habits. Have a great day, Mr. Fuller. Cleo.
The only thing I can say for certain at this time about that, no alcoholic drinks. I never even sipped one taste of any kind of alcoholic drink because at a very early age, without asking anybody anything, I was practically, very, very young. I guess maybe whatever age, 7, 8. I just saw people staggering around drunk. And I said, is that stuff they're drinking? Is that what makes them act like that? And then sometimes they would fight, fall down, hurt themselves, or want to hurt somebody else. And they said, well, they drink whiskey, had all kind of names for it, rot gut, all kind of Mountain Dew and slangs for it. So I said, I'm not drinking none of that. And when I said none, I mean none. Because I said, what? I could see, where's the result? And they said, well, but it makes them feel good. I said, hey, I don't want to feel good and then fall down on my face like I saw a person do. A real nice fellow. But he fell on his face forward one day, and I witnessed it, into a pile of glass. And I said, is that what happens? Is that the payoff? And even in my 8 or 9-year-old mind, whatever, I said, I don't see any compensation for that, in drinking that. I mean, whatever it is, you can't explain that away for me, because I don't want my face looking like that, my eyeball hanging out, blood all over the place, face forward, straight down into a pile of glass. And that's what that stuff makes you do. That's number one. Whiskey, alcoholic drinks, vodka, any of that. I don't care what name it's got. It's poison. I'm not drinking poison water. But I was drinking poison water like drinking sodas. That's some more poison water. But I didn't know it. Because it didn't make me act like what I saw when you drank whiskey. So, no whiskey. No drugs that I found out about later. Because they said that's in that same category. It makes you hurt yourself or somebody else or both. Okay? Hey, I don't need that. I don't need that. Don't talk to me about that. You forget that forever. No point in coming around later on. Even in my younger days, I could see that's not logical. Regardless of what the crowd says. I would go to the movies. Cigarette in one hand, that's the third one. No, see, I'm saying whiskey, drugs, cigarettes, in answer to the question. Now, the rest of the things, just pure luck. Because I found out much too late. I'm real late finding out that in the system of white supremacy, most of what we call food is pure poison. They have artificialized everything.
Mm-hmm.
They believe in everything being non-real. I think that's why black people have a kind of a gut reaction to saying, keep it real, to the things going on around them. That just jumped out from somebody and became a slang among black people for a while. And that is, keep it real, keep it real, keep it real. I mean, all this phony stuff. I mean, phony this, phony that. You got phony economics. Phony economics. I mean, it doesn't work very well for black people. You've got phony education. They tell you you're educated. You got a whole lot of fancy papers in both hands saying you're educated, but you ain't got no money. But you're educated. You ain't got a house, but you're educated. You ain't got health care, but you're educated. Wait a minute. You know, what is education for? It's so that you don't have a need for these things because you have these things. That's what the education is supposed to be for. So you've got a phony education. Talking about King Richard did this and King Richard did that. You're taking up prime time here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can learn about King Richard after I get to be a zillionaire.
Okay.
But I hope that answers the question. But
no,
just whiskey, cigarettes, drugs, that was right out the gate. Other than that, I cannot tell you anything about why I have reached the age that I have with all this mess going on around me when I ate lemon meringue pie like it was going out of style until it caught up with me. See, I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. It just so happened I'm limping along now. I would have been much healthier if I had known stop drinking sodas. It gives you arthritis. I know that in some cases of people I know. Because I told them, try stop drinking sodas. The arthritis went away. I don't know if that'll work for everybody, but I know it happened in a case I know about.
Okay.
You know, on a personal level.
All right.
Sodas.
All right. All right. And then you're sleeping and so forth.
My sleeping? I have sleep problems to this day.
Okay.
Because of my terrible sweetness habits. See, I got hooked on sugar. I put sugar on beans.
What?
All right? Yes, and salt on everything. I'm talking about when you say, hey, give me a plate of what you call dinner time food. Neely Fuller would say, where's the salt? And you bring me those little stingy packages of salt. I say, you're not serious. You know, bring me some salt.
Wow.
Bring me the salt. Bring me the whole salt box, please. Because half of it's going to be gone when I get up from the table. Now, that is a killer. But I didn't know that.
Yes, sir.
So I move slow now. But if I had known all about salt and sugar when I was, my teeth wouldn't have gotten in bad shape. But nobody told me these things. Just like, I'm Neely Fuller. You're talking about still learning. Don't look at Neely Fuller just because he's been here quite a while. He's just been lucky. That's all.
Okay.
I'm supposed to have been gone.
Oh, wow.
From just ordinary, what you call ordinary, Leave It to Beaver, I Love Lucy type settings in a great part of my existence.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, that answered your question, I believe, Mr. Cleo. Hope you got it. Okay, let's go over to Milwaukee. And that's going to be, okay, Corey, are you ready? Because I'm getting ready to do it right here. Wait a minute. Okay, Corey, got you on. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Grand Rising, gentlemen. My question for you, Mr. Fuller, and it it's been touched on in most of the topics that you spoke about, even the one that I think you referenced, which would be in the entertainment area. Is deceit and the telling of lies one of the primary weapons that these gangsters, the system of white supremacy, uses? And is withholding of information or delaying information being given, does this equate to a suspected racist?
Absolutely, yes. Deception, the white supremacists are masters at it. We're talking about the anniversary this year of Godfather movies. Remember the Don Corleone? Santino, come here. What's wrong with you? With all that karma with that young girl. Never tell anybody outside the family what you're thinking. Go on. That's right, the Godfather. Godfather 1. Marlon Brando talking to his son. Why? Hey, Salazzo is here trying to deceive us. You deceive him. That's what gangsters do. We fake out this stuff. We're actors, all right? We fake you out. You know, you trying to fake us out, we faking you out. You know, we do fake stuff. That's deception. Pretending we're doing one thing, pretending we're your friend, you're pretending you're ours. We do all this high-fiving and handshaking and whatnot when I'm planning on killing you. And they teach black people that nonsense. Deception. Violence. Deception. White people under the system of white supremacy. They do that with each other. What's going on the world scale now? Mr. Putin saying he's doing one thing when he may be doing something else other than what he says he's doing. And the people who are opposing him, they are saying what they are doing when maybe they're trying to do something else. Maybe Mr. Putin is correct about some things. Maybe they're correct about some things. But all of them put together are incorrect about a whole lot of things according to compensatory logic. Why? Because they're killing each other and babies are dying. And there's always something incorrect about that. I don't care who's doing it. Because babies are sent here by the creator of babies from people who cannot create babies. People say, I created you. People don't create anything. No people. I don't care what kind of people they are. What they do is utilize what is already here. But they did not create anything. You hear some artist saying, I created this. No, you didn't.
Yes.
Did you produce the materials, including yourself, that manifested itself in that painting? Sir or ma'am, did you first of all create yourself from nothing and then go back further than that? You had to create the nothing in order to put the something in, including yourself. Now, what person is walking around saying, I created nothing so that we can have the something in nothing, like the universe? No, you didn't. There's no evidence of that. So let's get this thing about creation out of the way this morning, here in March 2022. no person ever created anything. Who can prove it?
Okay. All righty. Let's do this. Getting ready to come to. Ooh, wait a minute. I thought I had him. Oh, this is Black Tony, Mr. Fuller. He says, Mr. Bobby, can you ask Mr. Fuller what would be the constructive result when Will Smith would slap Mr. Putin, being the slap heard around the world? Okay, I don't know what that means, but Mr. Fuller?
People in conflict with each other can produce constructive results, but that's not the best way to produce a constructive result according to the code.
Okay.
The code is about counter-racism, about counter-violence. The code says you can be violent about some things in self-defense.
Self-defense,
of your physical being, but you're never supposed to be violent about something that somebody said, but you can be counter-violent by saying something, not doing anything, but saying something. If the person said something, you can counter what the person said. If they said something that's not true or that is not constructive, you can, what's the antidote, according to the code, for someone saying something that's not true or non-constructive? You say something that is true and that is constructive. You say something, because that's talking, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking. You don't get violent about somebody talking. And, of course, I'm not addressing that incident of what we're talking about now to the persons involved, but I will address, I took some notes on it because I'm supposed to codify everything.
Yes, sir.
And I had to ask myself in the last 72 hours or whatever it is, since the Oscars, all right, Fuller, somebody might ask you about the Oscars. What does the code say? Not Neely Fuller in his little 5-cent opinions, but what does compensatory, counter-racist, universal logic say? Because that's what I tap into.
Okay.
Where does Neely Fuller get his information? Looking at the universe and trying to figure out what is the most constructive thing to do and say under every circumstance. Because it's a constructive way to do everything and a non-constructive way to do everything.
Yes,
so
sir.
I just say, okay, Fuller, what's the codified response according to universal logic? And so it says, well, in the system of white supremacy, first thing you do is make an assessment. All tacky, trashy, and terroristic behavior, particularly involving non-white people in their contacts with each other, is intended to be what? Greatly desired entertainment. That's in the system of white supremacy. So that's what, in reference to the incident in question, tacky, trashy, terroristic. This is how people are supposed to relate to each other, according to whom? The white supremacists. They call it entertainment. Among themselves, among anybody. Being tacky, in other words, no depth, no real honesty and truthfulness in your interaction with each other. Be phony. Be phony about everything. When you love somebody, a high five with somebody, or hugging everybody, all in front of the funeral home over somebody's casket. All that's supposed to be acting. Nothing sincere. Even the tears are not sincere. okay, in the system of white supremacy. It's just setting everybody up for some more tackiness, some more trashiness, and some more terroristic behavior. Tacky, trashy, terroristic. The 3 T's. That's in the code book itself. That's what everybody under the system of white supremacy is supposed to be into in your interactions with people. Be tacky. In other words, just sloppily go about doing everything. The way you talk to people, the way you interact with people. Just don't think about it. Just say it. Okay? This is tackiness. All right? And if you think about it, be tricky. Be up to something that's going to be harmful to the other person. All jokes have to be make people feel good about feeling bad. That's in the system of white supremacy. That's the tackiness and trashiness. If you try to improve on tacky behavior, it goes from tacky to trashy. That's all behavior. This is what the white supremacists want by everybody. Tacky, trashy, terroristic. That's the order. You start off being tacky, then the tackiness, if you try to improve on it, it becomes trashy. Then you got all the cursing and profanity and whatnot, and you glorify that, and everybody's supposed to think that that's great. And then you get terroristic, meaning you put fear into people. That's what terror is. I think it basically came originally from territory. You put fear into people in order to take their territory, in order to make them move. You put fear into people when you come into their house and set all of their furniture out on the sidewalk. That's fear. That's terroristic. It's fixing to rain and snow. And everything that you have sitting out there is going to be worthless now. That expensive mattress you just got, you're still paying for. It's going to be gone. You don't have any place to put it. Okay? So all kinds of tackiness, trashiness, and terroristic behavior that goes with the system of white supremacy. And they always applaud it, regardless of how they react on the surface. And when they see black people acting in a tacky, trashy, and you see that on TV every day, bring in the black people and see just how far they can go being trashy, basically with each other, but even with us, so that we can point them out as being a trashy people. All right? Black people come around and expect a lot of trash. Black people even got a slang, trash talking. All right? Goes way back. Okay? This is all acceptable and all embraced and looked forward to by black people and white people. Tackiness, trashiness, and then the terror. The terror. Putting fear into people by any means. All right? And then feeling good about it. The Oscars itself, I just want to say this. I got to say it. Oscar itself. This is something I wrote this morning. Look at Oscar. I'm going to reiterate it. But I haven't reiterated it like I'm doing right now. Before. I mentioned Oscar before. Oscar itself, see this now, has what? No hair, no garments, is naked, including a naked rear end, underlined, something that's always emphasized now, twerking and all that. Well, Oscar, they ain't doing no twerking because he can't move around. It's a statue. But it's got a naked rear end. And up front, out in front of the body of Oscar, has the genital area apparently being presented as a replacement by a death-producing sword. And this is what they present at a movie award. All right? And this is what you win and hold up to the whole world as something that you have been seeking forever as an actor or actress. I got Oscar in my hand and tears in my eyes as I look up at Oscar. I've been wanting one of these like forever. I've been struggling, and I finally got it. A person with no hair and no garments, but a naked rear end. All right. And the only thing that the person has is not some indication of heart or anything like that, like, you know, what you call a Valentine, for love of my craft, love of the people, who everybody gets on the stage and say how they love everybody. You know, I love my mother, I love everybody on the staff, I love this, I love my audience, oh, I just love everybody here, oh, you know. He's got a sword. I mean, taking the place of a genital, which is a part of the system of white supremacy. Genitals, something that's going to produce more people, are slowly being outlawed by the white supremacists among people of color, primarily. But they are doing a lot of it themselves to lead non-white people down that path. Look at what you're looking at, people, and like the code says, see what you're looking at and say, is this all about producing constructive results? What I saw just the other night, that everybody is all decked out in fine clothes and making a whole lot of hoopla about movies being made and commemorating a gangster movie. Is this constructive?
Okay.
All right, we can move on.
Well, guess what? Wow. The only thing I can say, Mr. Fuller, I knew some of what you had said because you had spoken to that before, but you went into great detail about that and given some perspectives that I'm still learning about, and I'm going to use some of those perspectives in the talks that I have weekly because I never thought about that, and that's good. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Well, we have come to a VGQ from Sally B. Mr. Bobby, concerning that slap, it would have been better for Mr. Smith to have somebody think of him as being a fool than for him to remove all doubt. Okay, Sally B. Mr. Fuller, we didn't get a chance to talk about your book, but for those, everything that Mr. Fuller has talked about and is talking about can be gathered and gotten at producejustice.com. That's where you get the book, at producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. The code book. All the information is there. So we're going to wrap up this first hour. Thank you for listening to the program. For those of you who have to go, I say bye. But those of you who are going to stay, say stick and stay, don't go away. Because we have more Mr. Fuller and your calls and VGQs and Gmails, all that and more coming up on the next hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Okay, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, as it is just about 7 seconds away from 10 o'clock in the eastern part of this concept, of this station. Welcome to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, and there are some that are holding, like Mr. Cherry and Ray in Dallas and Mike in Tulsa, you can be a part of the show by just dialing this number here, 516-453-9921. If you don't have a question, guess what? You can just listen to the show, as many are listening to the show via that number. But if you do have a question, just press the number 1 button, and then you will get in line like Mr. Cherry and Ray in Dallas and Mike in Tulsa have. You could join that list also. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And you can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. You want to get on programs and the Produce Justice Show, boing, push it. And then the chat room is available, and they are blown up. Yes, they are. Thank you, Khalid from Youngstown is in the house. All righty. Yeah, all that. And if you'd like a reaction or a summary of what has happened, constructive actions items, yeah, with the thumb up, gives you all the things that we have been talking about for weeks. Didn't have to tell them what to do. They just did that, their contribution to constructive results. Okay, I am going to go to Mr. Cherry. Mr. Cherry in the 516. You are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, gentlemen, countrymen, citizens, fellow prisoners. Can the problem of white supremacy be solved only by white supremacists doing away with, getting rid of, putting an end to, and replacing?
Can the problem of white supremacy be solved only by getting rid of white supremacy and replacing it? Is that the question?
But only by white supremacists.
In other words, the white supremacists have to do it themselves? Is that the question? I don't understand the question. Oh,
correct.
Only by the white supremacists.
Yes.
As far as I know, at this time, that's the best that I can come up with. They have to be cooperative at some point in saying, well, been there, done that. We're tired of it. We maybe need to try something else, and the only thing that's not really been seriously tried, has been talked about, is a thing called justice. That's the most reasonable way to go. We have different kinds of what we call governments of people's behavior throughout the history of people. And we have talked about justice from way back. Everybody talks about that. And everybody says it's a wonderful thing. But nobody has taken it seriously. And so the white supremacists are just the latest of a long line of people in conflict with each other, which is the first thing you get rid of. All kinds of conflict, no conflict at all. And first thing you do is stop glorifying it. But the white supremacists are very comfortable with this type of so-called lifestyle, which is nothing but a death style. That's what it generates. The system of white supremacy itself glorifies having just enough life in you to generate more death for fun, for glory, and for material comfort, for what you call a lifestyle, the very best, which is the system of white supremacy. It's very perverted, twisted, and crippled, a crippling system from what it should be, and that is quality relationships between people, in capital letters, equality relationship, meaning no hostility of any kind ever. The white supremacists don't want that. But they have to be cooperative if we're going to still be here on the planet together in coming up with a better system. So you try to persuade them to be cooperative, and then you try to force them by whatever means will work that will produce the most constructive result and heading in toward that direction. This is exactly what Neely Fuller is trying to do right here in their prison camp. I let them know, hey, I'm trying to put this whole prison camp out of business. And I'm a prisoner in the camp, one of your camps, wherever I am. I'm in your prison camp, wearing the prison uniform, the color of my skin. That's the prison uniform in the system of white supremacy. But I'm telling the warden and everybody else, I'm for putting you out of business for what you're doing. Why? Because it should be put out of business. That's my assignment. And I'm going to be trying to figure out every way that I can on my own, whether you cooperate or not. But ultimately, I would desire your cooperation, but if I find out a way to do it at any time without your cooperation, I'm telling you up front, I'm going to do it. So you can go ahead and get rid of me now, all right? Since you can see where my aim is, but I hope that you're a little bit too late because the word is out. Codification, that's the way to do it, and I think you know it. That's the only thing that hasn't been tried by the black people, by the victims. Codify everything, meaning what? Come up with a system where you do everything the same way every time. You say everything the same way every time. For instance, yes. Sir, ma'am, what does the code say about name calling or about somebody calling someone a name, calling you a name? All right, are you calling somebody else a name? You don't do it. Always call people by the names they want to be called. All right, regardless of who they are, whatever the circumstances are. What do you do if somebody calls you a name or says something you think is disrespectful or insulting? You don't say anything.
Yeah.
Don't say nothing? Yeah, don't say nothing. Have you ever tried it? Have you ever seen how wonderful that works? Why don't you try it? That's code. See, code is every time you do it, it works for you, not against you. Black people don't have anything like that. The white supremacists have everything like that. They don't do nothing that ain't going to work for them, even when it doesn't look like it's working for them. They know what they're doing. That's why they're the most powerful, smartest people in recorded history.
That's it.
Truth be told.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Cherry. And I'd like to commend my people in the chat room. You guys are very aware of what's going on, and you will deal with it just like you did the last time. Just like you did the last time. Ray, man, you in the Big D, man. And guess what? Big D, wait a minute, there you are. You're on. Do your thing, man. Wait a minute, let me still buffering. There you go. All righty.
All right. Mr. Fuller, last week I submitted a report to my employer on environmental error factors concerning the job, and the next day a suspected white supremacist pulled me to the side and told me, Ray, choose your battles. I am not the one. And so I was wondering if you had any advice on what the course of action should be in regarding the 3 I's and what I should do in the situation.
Now, what's that situation again? Go through it just one more time.
Yes, sir. I submitted a report to my employer on environmental error factors. You submitted a report to your employer? Yes, on environmental error factors.
About an environmental error factor?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. That's in the textbook. All right, go ahead.
Yes, sir. And so a suspected white supremacist told me, Ray, choose your battles. I am not the one. Now, I have...
Wait a minute. I want to get that straight. I mean, that seems like the nucleus of what you're asking. He told you what?
Choose your battles. I am not the one.
Choose your battles. He is not the one.
Yes, sir.
Well, you were making a report. First thing you say, sir, I'm not battling anything. I am making a suggestion about the improvement of the workplace. And then you say, whom do I talk to about making improvements on the workplace? See, in other words, your request, you were making a request, and he thought that you were making a battle. So you go back and tell him, you know, first of all, get straight what you're doing. I'm not looking for a battle. I'm, you know, I hope I'm not in a battle situation. I am doing what I was instructed to do. Make a suggestion about improving the environment in the workplace in order to get the best results from everyone, the most constructive results from everyone, including myself and yourself, in the workplace. You know, make it clear to him. Go back to him and ask. You got to ask permission. You're in prison now. So you ask permission to see the person who has power, all right? Like in any prison. And you say, sir, I've come back to you and I'd like to have one more clarification. I'd like to make a clarification so there'll be an understanding of what I'm doing. Because apparently he didn't get the understanding of what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is get the most constructive results. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's it. You just ask for another audience. You say, sir, I didn't come in, you know, I wasn't wearing, you know, a battle suit. I'm not a soldier. You know, I was told I was an employee, and what an employee is supposed to do is improve the environment. Now, sir, do you want me to talk to you about improving the workplace environment or not? And if you don't, will you just kind of put it in writing and sign it so that I can show it to everybody when they come around talking about improving the workplace environment? I'll say I'm prohibited from doing that. I'm prohibited. I'll collect a check, but I'm prohibited about saying anything about improving the workplace environment, and I have documentation to prove it, signed by Mr. So-and-so. I mean, just tell him, just like I'm telling you. You tell him, you know, if it goes that far. Now, he might say, oh, I thought you came in here to start an argument with me. And you say, no, sir. I came in here to make a suggestion about improving the environment that will produce the most constructive results here in the workplace for everybody. Because I thought that was my job. I thought. But if that's not my job, then you can tell me what my job is. Why am I here? Or have somebody tell me. You're the boss. I've been told, or the supervisor, or whatever his title is. Always call him by his title. And always be courteous. But you can announce, first of all, you have reason to believe you were misunderstood. You weren't looking for a battle. You were looking for a chance to inform him of how the workplace environment can be improved. And if he tells you, I don't want no blankety-blanket environment improved, then you just ask him to put that in writing. So that when you come up with an evaluation, I mean, you know, might be the papers all over the floor, and the filing cabinet is over there blocking the entrance way. And somebody asks you, why did you rearrange the furniture? Why are you just leaving things, your desk is a mess. All right, and when you work at somebody else's desk, you leave it like, you say, well, I was instructed that we're not improving the environment here. We're not supposed to be. I was instructed that we make it worse, make it look like a battlefield, if that's what the instructions were from the person that you're taking this to. But whatever he instructs you to do, now he said choose your battles. But you want to first of all know who you didn't come there to battle anybody. So there's a misunderstanding. What they say in that movie that Paul Newman was in, where he was a prisoner, what we have here, sir, and I've said this on my job right out of the movie, what we have here, sir, is failure to communicate. Everybody in the room laughed, but I wouldn't laugh. That's an excellent sign. That's why I say you can learn from the movies. The very movies that give out Oscars to, you can use those on your job. Mm-hmm. They call it, one of the great American institutions. So when you take stuff out of a movie that you learn, but try to learn the constructive stuff or even the non-constructive stuff. That's why I have a movie list on my website. All right?
Yes, sure do.
You pick out non-constructive stuff and make it constructive. That's compensatory logic.
Yes. All right, Ray from Dallas. Let's go from Dallas and let's go all the way over to the concept that they call, whatever that is over there, the kingdom or whatever that is, United Kingdom, UK, whatever the hell that is. But anyway, Sheba, Mr. Fuller, has written this, saying this. It says, Dear Mr. Bobby, for several weeks now, you have received several calls from a person who was using your program, with an E, to market his security product. I cannot remember his name, but his tactic is to put scenarios to Mr. Fuller involving police stops or robberies. Ask Mr. Fuller for a solution, but then talk about his own solution and then give out his details. Please, Mr. Bobby, can this be stopped? I love the program, with an E, and I tune in to listen to Mr. Fuller every week, and this man, even though he may mean well, is spoiling it for me. He is using the show to market his service and is not focused on replacing racism with justice. Mr. Fuller, what do you think? Thank you for your time. Best wishes from Sheba from the concept called the United Kingdom, Great Britain. Mr. Fuller, what say you?
What is being done according to compensatory logic? I have to make an assessment since I don't have the details. And I have people who are looking into all of these things. I have been told, all right, so that what? We can come up with the most constructive result, okay? There are people who are saying that, well, I'm just trying to help. I heard that from the very first time I made a talk, and people started doing things. So I say, okay, well, what's the best way to come up with the most constructive result without anybody being non-justly harmed? Because when you're stealing, somebody is being harmed. So, first of all, did you talk about it with me, which people can get in touch with me if they have a proposal through producejustice.com. That's the procedure. just go to producejustice.com. Otherwise, later on, there's going to be some litigation. With some of the people out here who are doing these things, if anybody can attach their name, there are some people who are hiding their names, anonymous or whatever, and all like that. But somebody in an investigation, and they shouldn't have to go through all this, the people who are doing this, I'm asking them right now, because this information is coming to me. Go to producejustice.com and say to the people at producejustice.com that you want to make contact with someone who is going to be using Neely Fuller's material. And before you do it, because this is what I would do and would never do anything else but that, wouldn't make a move until I say, well, I'm going to talk to whatever person I'm going to talk to, including like I was on a job, I had jobs, the supervisor, about selling popcorn in the lobby. And popcorn of a company that he's associated with. And I'm going to do it in his name. And then I'm going to slowly switch it over to my name or say that we are partners or give the appearance that we are partners when I haven't even talked to the person or talked to anyone who said that they are the contact person for Neely Fuller. That's the procedure. I strongly suspect that a lot of the people who may be doing these things, some of them know this, but they're going the gangster route. I ain't talking to Neely Fuller about nothing. I'm just going to take that old nitwit stuff. I'm going to get in his car and drive off and tell everybody it's mine. And hop in, because I'm driving a taxi service now. That's what Columbus did. Like Dick Gregory is reported to have said. I don't want to misquote him. He said, talking about Christopher Columbus, he said he discovered America. And Dick Gregory said on a couple of occasions, I think I heard at least two of them, where he said, that's like you discover my car and I'm sitting in it.
Yeah.
See, in other words, you're copying the white supremacists, the people who are out here. Stop doing that in everything they do. You can copy them in some things, but when it comes to interaction between people, stop that gangster stuff.
Stop it. Yes.
I mean, black people need to get out of the gangster business altogether. We're not good at it.
Before we conclude today's show, Mr. Fuller, it has been requested, particularly from the concept of those who live in the United Kingdom or Great Britain, that soliloquy you gave on the Oscars, that you would repeat that again in its entirety because, quote, it was powerful. You know, about the statue and all those things that you pointed out. It was powerful. So hopefully...
Did I point it out when?
Today, on today's program in the first hour.
Okay, well, I hope they recorded it. I mean, because we have it recorded, correct?
I know you do, but there are those that are tuned in.
We have it recorded?
There are those that are tuned in
I want every word that I have ever said on the air.
Yes.
On every radio program.
Yes.
Repeat it until what? Until white supremacy has been replaced with justice.
Yeah.
Every word that I said, not somebody ad-libbing off of what I said, because it might be changed so that you have a different meaning altogether. The white supremacists already got, I'm quite sure, this is just my imagination now, but I think I'm on point. They already got a whole library of what I said and how they are going to have a whole library of canceling out what I said.
Yes.
Okay? I bet you they got that plan already. There ain't nothing to do.
Yes, it's been already suggested to them who have written me that they should listen to the first hour also. Yeah, and they would get all that information because you did, in fact, address that. Let's see here. Mike, get ready, Mike. Out there in, I think they call it what, Tulsa? Yeah, Mike, Tulsa. Guess what? You're in the house. Go ahead, Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller, and thank you
Mike.
both again for providing this forum for us to learn. I wanted to offer basically a VGQ based on some things that I heard this morning, and I really appreciate Mr. Fuller's clarity on his take on reparations. But what I wanted to add based on the work that I'm doing with others in terms of reparations at this current time is to offer maybe that we consider it as opposed to, it is reparations, but what I'm getting at is that word tends to be charged. And so the way that I look at it is compensatory justice and repair. Now, what I've always understood from what Mr. Fuller talks about is dismantling the system of white supremacy. And the work that we're doing here with reparations is not necessarily doing that, but it's more seen as a tool or a component in, at some point, offering the solution that Mr. Fuller is talking about. And what I wanted to offer is that we here in the concept that we call the U.S. live in a capitalist society. That is the fuel that powers the white supremacy in this situation. Mr. Fuller talked even today twice that I've heard so far about this idea that stealing is harm, and that's what we're talking about. So when we're talking about, at least again, the movements that I'm involved with, reparations in this country, we're not talking about for 6,000 years. We're talking about very specific justice claims that would allow us, and this was something that Mr. Fuller mentioned even this morning. I didn't hear the whole comment, but I did hear that he talked about from what I understood, the value of education and health care in certain parts of the society not being worthwhile. And he made some comment, I don't remember it right off the top of my head, but that he would take care of that when he became a millionaire. I think is something of that nature. But what I wanted to add is that we're working with some of the leading economists, and what we're talking about based on the calculations that we've made is for the claimants, we'll say, in our claim, about $800,000 per person, which is very significant. And this is not, again, the only thing, but what I also wanted to put forward, and I think maybe people would benefit from understanding, is when we talk about education being a solution, that's part of what we're looking at in terms of reparations. But just to give you some idea, because this is based on data that I'm looking at from 2014, so maybe not the most current, but certainly from economists, that black people with a college degree have an earning potential on, I think this is median figures, of about $70,000, whereas white people with a high school education have a median household net worth of $118,000. When you move up into post-college degrees, you see black people around $140,000 and white people at $455,000. So the point that I wanted to try to make here is that, again, capitalism is the fuel that powers this system of white supremacy that we're in here. So we're not looking at solving the whole concept of white supremacy and racism, but at least helping to move us up the ladder in terms of having some way to deal with maneuvering in the system until we can get to that point. So those are the points that I really wanted to add today, and I really thank you for your allowing me to do that.
Okay, Mike, it is noted. And with that, we're going to take a break. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, just call 516-453-9921 and press the number 1 button if you have a question or a comment. Do that. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, or you can join the chat room and the conversations there by going to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to go on programs and get the Produce Justice show, and then when you click on that bad boy, then the chat will come up, the chat room will come up, and you can get into the chat room and join in on the conversation. All right. So those are the things. And please be aware, as Mr. Fuller stated before we went to commercial and before you heard the last VGQ, that everything that he says or each program, it's recorded. So whatever you say, man, me too. Hey, it's on there. It's recorded forever. Forever. So if you focus on being constructive or constructive results, then you don't have to worry. But if you have another agenda, hey, gotcha. It's recorded. It is recorded. Okay, Khalid, in the Y, or in the yo. I think I got it right. In the yo. Okay, your turn, bro. Go, Khalid.
Yes, sir. You got it right, Mr. Bobby. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, brother. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. We do call it the yo. I actually grew up here, but I don't live here really anymore, but I spend much time here. I want to say thank you to you and definitely Mr. Fuller. I often don't always get the time to call in as I run a business, so a lot of times I have to go and listen to the recording. But what I want to do again is say thank you to you, Mr. Bobby. I have sent emails in the past, and you have read them. Mr. Fuller, thank you very much for who you are. But I want to ask this question, but I want to preface it by saying this first. I have heard Mr. Fuller say in the past that you should question everything. So I'm always, my uncle just reminded me, we were in Lexington a couple of days ago. He's a poet. We were doing an event that I've always been that way as a child. But an earlier caller called in and used the term gang bang. Now, if you go look at the origin of gang and then bang, there are several different ways that word can be used. My brother is a commercial electrician. They have a thing called a gang box. My nephew sometimes will say, Uncle, I banged that girl, or this or that. So I'm not going to go into something really long. Well, I will say this. I was in Greece one year when I worked for the Department of Defense, and some guy, I wasn't at the location, but there were some Navy guys that we were with. I mean, that was in the same location that made a comment, and the Greeks took it differently, and a big fight broke out, and we had some guys to go to jail. But my question to Mr. Fuller is, when the gentleman said to you, gang bang, I have heard you say in the past, Mr. Fuller, well, what do you mean by that? Like me, I would have asked the question, what's your definition of gang and what's your definition of bang? Because I'm under the assumption that, according to logic, we should never assume what a person means. So my question is to Mr. Fuller, you went right into the topic of gang banging, which we know as guys getting together, fighting or doing whatever. My question is, should we question, or why did not you question? Because I have heard you before, because there was a woman that said to me just a few weeks ago, I want you. I asked her the question, what do you mean by want? Well, you know what I mean. No, I don't. My definition of want may be something totally different than yours. I don't use the word love because I didn't make that word up. I was born into all these words. So I kind of make my own definition. So, Mr. Fuller, was it safe for you to just jump right into that topic and assume this gentleman was talking about
the gang banging that we know of, from especially the gangs in California or anywhere else. And I'm going to end that with that question. Mr. Bobby, thank you very much. I'll be talking to you soon again. Mr. Fuller, I love what you do. Keep doing what you do, but that was my question.
All right, Khalid, thank you. Mr. Fuller?
Oh, yes, the best procedure is something that I didn't use. The caller is correct, but I did use the traditional, like I use the traditional definitions. Well, just, I'm on the air and I wrote a book. The traditional definitions for every word has a definition. I usually use the traditional definitions. But if you're going to be specific and purist, like the caller is just saying, that is really the compensatory codified way. If there's any chance that there might be a misunderstanding of what is being said, like the person said, something about battle, to describe what was going to happen on something, the word battle, that the caller said that a supervisor used in a conversation when the person who was talking to his supervisor hadn't said anything about a battle, but the supervisor mentioned battle.
Yes.
So the procedure in that case, first of all, just like the caller just said, the caller is correct in the compensatory way. Anytime you have doubts about the meaning of what somebody is saying, like I do on this program for the most part, that's why I have everybody repeat the same thing that they just said, maybe 4 or 5 times. So I'll make it sure that I'm hearing what I think I'm hearing. I have to do that. It's very annoying. It's annoying to me, and it takes up a lot of time, too. And I know the callers get sick and say, I know that guy is old, but, man, such a thing as being old, but such a thing as getting moving. He's slowing everything down. I'm slowing it down because you have to have an understanding of what a person means when they say anything. Get a clear understanding about that and what their intentions are about what they mean. You got to get an understanding about that. So it calls for a whole lot of annoying questions, really.
Mm-hmm.
But the caller is correct. Hey, you can even ask, are you annoyed by the questions? And the person might say yes. Then you can say, well, do you have a better way to say it, what you're saying, that you suggest that would get around whatever is annoying you, other than what we are doing? That would be the logical question. Always go for the logic.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the logic in mind. And the caller is correct. If you have what you think may be a misunderstanding of what gang banging means, by all means, stop everything. Say, wait a minute, let's get it straight. What do you mean by gang? What do you mean by bang? What do you mean by banging? All right? You can even split up one word. Banging.
Yes.
That's that's gang bang in. You can have bang and ing. What do you mean by bang? What do you mean by ing? And we might take 6 hours just talking about that. By doing what? I'm banging by doing what? Because, that banging part, just like the caller said, it can mean a number of things.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the habit of doing that. That's a wonderful habit to have, because that's pure code.
You're
that's
correct.
Pure code.
Or just
that will
like
do wonders for you. That'll do wonders for everybody as far as getting what? The most constructive results. If you don't believe it, try it.
So when if I remember correctly, or something to this effect, when the caller said that the supervisor or manager said, now I don't know the direct quote, but it was something like this: you don't want none of this, or you don't want to go there, or you don't want none of this smoke. If he didn't understand whatever the supervisor was communicating with him, that would also been a point where he would ask that question, what do you mean I don't want this, or I don't want to go there, or want none of this smoke? What are you talking about? Would that be the appropriate point to ask that question?
But you don't ask it, you ask it, first of all, in a courteous manner.
Yes.
Sir, what do you mean by battle? You mentioned the word battle when I didn't mention the word battle.
Yeah.
So the word battle within this context, I'm not battling anything. Or maybe I am. You have to tell me. Well, when did the battle start?
That's what I'm asking. He has to be. That's what I'm asking.
And then that's what you can tell the person what you are trying to do. Improve the environment.
Yes. Well,
and then you
ask
the person, if the person doesn't want to talk about improving the environment, then you ask them, you have a follow-up question. This is what I would do, because I've been in these situations. Well, is there a better time that I can ask you questions or make a suggestion about improving the work environment, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Or man.
Or
you can always go to the question lane.
The manager, whoever mentioned the word a battle when the caller didn't say that, he said battle. So the question would be, what do you mean what battle? Oh, okay, being kind, as you say. What battle? What are you talking about? I didn't mention battle. I'm talking about
or he can say that, or he can go straight to what he did say. He can just repeat what he said. All right? Just like I always tell people. I don't say I always, because now I've said something that ain't true. But I'll say it now. And that is, talk like you're in court all the time. Because you are in court. And everybody's on trial, including you. That's the way you look at it. That's a part of the compensatory code. Talk just like you're talking if you're in court and your life is on the line in every conversation that you have, because it just might be.
It just might be. All right, correct. All righty. I'm going to get to, let's see, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, I got to get to this here. This is a question from Miss Anonymous, so hang on in there, John from Houston. I got you last coming up here. This is Miss Anonymous. She said, "Dear Mr. Fuller, do you ever think marijuana will be recreational in the 50 states in this?" Well, she used another word, but I'm going to say in this concept, Northwestern Hemisphere.
I don't know, because only the white supremacists know in the system of white supremacy where it comes to non-white people using marijuana. But if anybody asks me about marijuana, I'll just put this addition in there. So the answer is I don't know. I don't know what the white supremacists might do. Only they know what they might do. They got the power to do a whole lot of things. So Neely Fuller doesn't know what they might do. They might do anything. Some things constructive, a whole lot of things non-constructive, where non-white people are concerned. So if marijuana comes up according to the code, and the white supremacists say, this is a great thing for black people to have, then the code says you're automatically saying they're trying to harm me. That's your initial reaction. Here they come. What are they up to now? That's your question.
That's your question.
And you always assume if they're the usual suspects, the white supremacists, they come to do harm. So if they say in marijuana is somehow going to have a constructive result, if I take that smoke that comes from a leaf called marijuana, if I put it with some type of fire of some type, and it turns into smoke, and I inhale the smoke, that I will, what? Improve my bodily environment and the environment as a whole, and the environment of somebody's pocketbook, and everybody will be happy. Now I got about 1,000 questions maybe. How is this going to be an improvement over air? George Floyd said, I can't breathe. He had something in his hand that they accused him of stealing that would make smoke. But George Floyd didn't ask, hey, give me that I had in my hand. Take these cuffs off me and let me inhale what I had, the smoke from what I had. Now, the question is, would that improve over what he asked for under a knee? What did he ask for? Air. He didn't ask for smoke. He didn't say, hey, man, give me a smoke. He asked for air.
Yes, for air.
It would seem to me, logically speaking, that air is a great improvement over any kind of smoke.
Okay. It is. Okay. Gary asked you this, Mr. Fuller. He said, why are black males so eager to walk up and hit someone and humiliate themselves in front of a world? In what regard, in regards to the whole Oscar situation, it makes me sad.
Well, I addressed that in the first hour.
Yes, you did.
But I will do it again. I don't like to, to get personal. The code says avoid being personal. Keep it business, meaning code. Somebody has given me this, and I've got it in place I use it. Hey, if you make suggestions to improve things, it becomes a part of the code. But this didn't come from me. On code, I've been hearing that. People, as an expression. Those two words, on code. And now I'm using it. But it didn't come from me. All right? So that's legit. But according to what I took some notes this morning about the Oscars. See, I went straight for the top of what the program is about, called the Oscars. In the system of white supremacy, all tacky, trashy, and terroristic behavior, particularly involving non-white people in their contacts with each other, is and is intended to be greatly desired entertainment. I'm going to say that again. In connection with the Oscars specifically, I wrote this morning. In the system of white supremacy, all tacky meaning something sloppily thrown together, trashy meaning people cursing and using profanity and being discourteous, or what some people would call disrespectful, which is a whole different thing. It's trashy. Trash talk. That's what black people sometimes call it. I mean, just trash, just pure trash. Got a whole lot of TV programs that's devoted to black people being trashy, okay? And or terroristic, tacky, trashy, terroristic behavior, particularly involving non-white people in their contacts with, underline, each other, is and is intended to be greatly desired entertainment in the system of white supremacy. Anything that black people do that is tacky, trashy, terroristic, meaning putting fear into somebody, behavior is greatly desired by the white supremacists as entertainment for everybody, particularly if it involves non-white people. So one black person doing any kind of harm to another, whether it's verbal, or physical is greatly approved of, calls for applause by everybody on the planet, white and black, and non-white, male, female, newborn babies, if they know what's going on. They're supposed to applaud anything that black people do in the system of white supremacy that is tacky, trashy, and terroristic, as long as it's not hurting what? The system of white supremacy. And then I said this about Oscar itself, which is what everybody came there to get, or to look at other people get at the awards ceremony, something called, quote, unquote, Oscar. What did I write this morning? I'm going to read it. Oscar itself has no hair. Now look at what Oscar doesn't have. No hair. I think somebody mentioned something about hair in that program. All right. Oscar has no hair. And everybody wants a piece of Oscar. All right. All right. Or a whole Oscar, preferably. Who came there, or to witness somebody else coming there to get it. Oscar itself has no hair. And Oscar also has this. No garments. Not wearing anything. Now, the people who came to watch Oscar being transferred, or what you call dressed to the nines, to use a slang expression. Oscar is also what? Naked. Including, I have this in parenthesis, a naked rear end. And rear ends are very important if they're naked in the white supremacist system nowadays. All right? Because they're taking the place of black female vaginas. White rear ends, preferably. But Oscar will do, even though Oscar is supposed to be gold. All right? But a white rear end is kind of classified as gold in the new sexual categories. All right. But let me continue. Including a naked rear end. That's Oscar I'm talking about. And Oscar also has what? Or doesn't have. And Oscar has the genital area. Oscar has the genital area apparently being presented as a replacement by a death-producing sword. It's a sword. That's the only thing Oscar has. And when you go and grab the Oscar and hold it up and say, I've worked real hard, some people with tears in their eyes, and they're congratulating everybody out there, including the entire audience and the entire world. You see this, Oscar? I've been working hard to get this. And Oscar has a sword in its hand, meaning I'm naked, except for one thing, a sword. I don't even have hair. Get rid of the hair. And present my entire body, including a naked rear end, that I recently, have been told is a great thing as a substitute for a vagina. All right? Preferably a white one, but gold will do. But the main thing, my genital, something that symbolizes giving birth to life, keeping life alive, keeping life going on and continuing out of what they call generations, genitals, female vagina, male phallus. Those are what you call genitals. Have them covered up. Me, Oscar. So you don't see whether it's male or female, because it don't count. But what does count is the sword that not introduces you into life, but introduces you into more what? Death. And I'm going to hold it up to the whole world and say, yes, this is what I have wanted to achieve. I hope somebody thinks about that message.
Okay.
Maybe Oscar will probably, at some point, have on a whole lot of clothes. Might even have on a turban, all right? I don't know.
Okay.
But it might have a whole lot of hair, all right? May have the rear end covered up, and I don't know, some statues do present genitals, male or female, which might be unsightly to some people, but if you cover it up, you can have garments covered up. But what message are you sending to the entire world for an entire category of entertainment? What message are you sending to the world when you make the featured item in your presentation something that kills people? A sword.
Okay.
Think about it, folks.
Think about it. Well, it looks like we have run out of time. So, John, I'll tell you what we're going to do, John. This is what we always do when we run out of time. You call in, and you will be just call this call screener, and they will expedite you to the top of the line. That way we can get you in. We just didn't have enough time to get you in this time. So just call, and when you call in again, they will expedite you up to the top because they got your number. Mr. Fuller, we got 1 minute to really talk about your book. So talk about Produce Justice for before we close it out.
The backup or the foundation for what I'm talking about in these 2 hours is I'm trying to present in word form why we are here. We meaning everybody on this planet called Earth or in this universe to solve problems. And the basic problem is a problem called the system of white supremacy, in Neely Fuller's opinion, because that's the obstacle that gets in the way of everything that's going to produce a constructive relationship, a quality relationship between people. The system of white supremacy is a very, very productive vehicle for producing things, but it makes a mess out of people. It takes people from babies and makes them into something that should not exist. Okay. Victims of white supremacy. And the book is about replacing the system of white supremacy, which has become, in the opinion of the author of the book, me, Neely Fuller Jr., in the opinion of some, has made the world a place that's based on violence and doing harm to people and doing harm to the environment and everything else, and just throwing people like trash away and worshiping things rather than people. Things are supposed to be supportive of people, all people. And
yes.
The book called The Textbook for Victims of White Supremacy, you can get by going to producejustice.com.
All
right. And that's supposed to help guide us to replace the system of white supremacy with a system of a quality relationship with each other.
All right, the music is playing, so that means we got to go. But thank you for listening for everybody. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers, Gmailers, and bloggers or talkers, chat room people, all that, producers, and all that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Me for the mistakes that we've made, but we'll try to get better. ProduceJustice.com. We will see you next week. Have a good week.
Thank you.